Prepare your pockets for some Game Boy. This is the Game Boy Pocket, released in 1996, several years after the original Game Boy. It's smaller, it's lighter, and it uses two AAA batteries to deliver hours of video gaming fun. Here it is next to its older sibling, the original giant hulking Game Boy. As you see, the Game Boy Pocket is like half the size of that thing. And I like the cool transparent case, but is it better than the Tiger Gamecom? Yes, that was a stupid question. It's better because it's a Nintendo Game Boy and plays Game Boy games. There's a lot of them. And it's fun to collect for the Game Boy. But do you need a Game Boy Pocket instead of the original Game Boy? Well, if you love Game Boy and you have pockets, then yes, you need the Game Boy Pocket, which fits in pockets. The original Game Boy, which does not say pocket, does not fit in pockets. And Classic Game Room uses science to prove this. Here's Derek demonstrating that the original Game Boy does not fit into pockets. Also, he exploded into flames 5 minutes later. He'll be missed. Not much, but maybe a little. Before his tragic accident, Derek also demonstrates that the Gamecom does not fit in pockets. So really, if you have pockets, then the Game Boy Pocket is the Game Boy for you and your pockets. Ah, one can dream. One can dream. The best thing about the Game Boy Pocket is that it's a Game Boy, and in addition to fitting in your pocket, it works really well. It's a far more comfortable Game Boy than the original, and the screen is actually pretty good if you have enough light to see it. If you're an old school Game Boy purist and want to enjoy Game Boy games in their original black and white non-backlit glory, then the Game Boy Pocket is the Game Boy I would recommend. Even if you don't have pockets, it's still the one I would recommend. For black and white, if you want color and a backlit screen, I would recommend the Game Boy Advance SP. But in all fairness, the Game Boy Advance SP does not say pocket, so it may not be safe to fit in your pockets. Just something to consider. Safety. The Game Boy Pocket has been pocket tested, and Pocket performs. It also has a monstrous library of games, most of which are reasonably affordable and fun to play. Everybody watching this show should have at least one Game Boy. There's many models to choose from, and countless games to play on it. I like the Game Boy Pocket. It's the only one Pocket rated for pocket performance, but it's also cool. It's black and white, and that's edgy. It's the Game Boy Pocket, boys and girls. Thumbs up, although I would still recommend the Game Boy Advance SP if you're really in the market for a new Game Boy, but it does cost more, although it does more. Yet it is not pocket performance tested, so you will have to just carry it everywhere. I actually duct tape mine to my chest. So a huge Classic Game Room thank you and shout out to Mark from Bremen, Germany for sending the Game Boy Pocket, along with a Philips CDI and a box of PAL Nintendo games I'm still trying to figure out how to record. Thanks again, Mark. Great name, by the way. It's the Game Boy your pockets love, the Game Boy Pocket. Now you finally have a reason to say, is that a Game Boy Pocket in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? Neither. It's an Atari 800 XL computer in my pocket, because it fits in there using magic. And I have a monitor in the other pocket.